Have you ever noticed that life, in spite of all of the plans we may make, still has all kinds of interruptions that go on? There were great plans this weekend for us to have a great worship service at Central, but we weren't planning on ice and a little bit of snow and the weather being such that it wouldn't be possible for us to get there. If you're one of the Central members especially, I want you to think about a couple of things today as we're not able to be there together. A lot of times, even in Jesus' life, there were things that happened as an interruption, and yet some of the greatest things that he was recorded to have done happened at a time of interruption. In Luke chapter 8, there's a story of Jesus as he was traveling along, and a man named Jairus came to him and said, I've got a daughter. She's just 12 years old and she's near death. Would you come and heal her? Would you bring her back from that time of near death? And as Jesus is traveling with him toward that house to be able to bring that young girl back to health, back to life, there was a woman that had been struggling with some kind of hemorrhaging problem for 12 years and had gone to doctor after doctor after doctor and had spent everything that she had trying to get some relief. She heard about Jesus. Now, I'm sure that she knew that the Old Testament law taught that if one had a problem like that they were not to be in the crowd at all. As a matter of fact, they were not to have any bodily contact with anyone else. And yet, she knew that there was something about this man that was wholly different. Instead of being afraid to come to him as a religious leader, to be able to touch him and to have some kind of help from him, she knew that if she could reach him, there might be an answer. And in her mind, she conceived the idea by faith that if I can just touch the hem of his garment, then I'll be healed. And so she made her way to him in that crowd, pushing, I suppose, trying to get closer to Jesus and trying not to be obvious to everyone else. And then it happened. She got within range and reached out and touched the hem of his garments. And she was healed immediately. She felt the stop of that flow of blood in her at the moment that she touched that garment. Now, Jesus turned around immediately and saying, I felt power go out of me. And so what could have happened? Peter said to him, Lord, what do you mean? You can't know who touched you when there's a crowd. Everybody's pressing against you. Jesus said, I felt power go out of me. Someone touched me. The woman realized that she had been found out. And so she came trembling before Jesus and told him the story of what had happened. And he said, woman, your faith has healed you. Now here's what I want you to think about today. It was just an interruption. Jesus was on his way to do something else, raise a child, to bring it back to fullness of health and life. And yet she interrupted. And out of that interruption brought healing to her and a change of her whole life. And then the process, note that Jesus, unlike so many, didn't get disturbed because of the interruption. Rather, he was thrilled that her faith had made her whole. Now, here's my question to you as you think about it. He said her faith healed her. Was it faith by itself? If she had believed with all of her heart that if she just touched anyone's garment, would it have brought healing? If she had believed with all of her heart that if she touched a great spiritual leader and had gone to one of the rabbis well known in that day and reached out and touched his garment, would it have brought healing? No. As much as it was her faith that healed her, that brought that change in her. It had to be faith based on reality. She had to touch the right garment. She could have touched many garments and to believe with all of her heart that it would have brought healing. But the only way healing came was if she touched his garment, the one that had the power. And I want to tell you today, we're saved before God by faith. And our faith must act. If that woman had just believed with all of her heart that she could have been healed but stayed at home just believing it, the reality is she would have died with that problem. It was when her faith worked and when her faith was accurate to touch the right garment with the right man that she found healing in her body. Listen, all of us are hurting in some way. Our Lord offers us healing. Healing comes by faith. But that faith demands action on our part, and that faith demands that it be right, that it be real. We must touch the garment of Jesus if we're going to find meaning and healing in our life. And it's also true of all of us that we find interruptions in life, and sometimes the interruptions are the greatest opportunity to serve and to help someone in trouble that we'll ever have. Jesus had a great mission. He was going to heal a young girl, a 12-year-old girl that had her life in front of her. And yet, he didn't overlook the woman that interrupted on the way in order to carry out the great mission that he had. In our day of interruption, our time of being interrupted from what we would like to do, it's a great time to remember that in the very times of interruption may come the greatest opportunities to serve and to help and to make a difference that we'll have. And so don't overlook what can happen. And all as you go on living through the rest of this week and through life, remember that it's important to believe, but it's important to touch the right garment if we're going to find healing in life.